So try-catch blocks are fairly straightforward, except they can get pretty complicated. I'm going to upload this online for future reference for you guys. So if you're still working, there's no need to tune in right now. Public static void main to start this. So what is a try-catch block, right? Occasionally your code is going to crash because some idiot is an idiot, right? People are idiots. So such as like when you try to go for a file that doesn't exist. A good example is when I use scanner, in fact. I haven't gone over this, and now this will count as going over it. But you can use scanner for a lot of other things, right? I said scanner, you can scan a whole lot of stuff. Well, you can scan other stuff. So here I've got in my library a file I really like to keep around because it's fairly large. It is pg100.txt, which is all the combined works of Shakespeare. So to read this, I need a file object. File f is equal to a new file, pg100.txt, right? And I need to import the file object, and I just simply tell it where it's located over there, right? So it's located there. And now here there's a lot of things that can go wrong here if I try to use scanner to read it, okay? What it's doing over here is that when scanner is written, if you're trying to read from a file, it has a bit of a warning that says, hey, it's very possible that this will blow up if I can't find the file, right? Just so you know. So I want you to handle that so you're not surprised about it. So there's two ways you can handle this. The first is being lazy by telling everybody that our method can throw an exception, right? This throws file not found exception. This warns anybody above you that you need to also throw an exception. Tell me that you're going to throw an exception, which means creating an error, right? This warns anybody who calls you that you might blow up, and that's fine. The other way to do it is actually to try to handle it, which is what we do with a try-catch block. So any code that can potentially fail goes inside of a try block, okay? So you can put code that won't fail in there, but what's the point at that point? So in this try block, we're going to create I'm going to say like scanner is equal to a new scanner. Okay. And then we try to catch any exception that occurs, right? So all exceptions are children of the exception superclass, which is something we'll go over next week. Sorry, is it Thursday? No, it's Tuesday. That's something we're going to go over on Thursday, right? So exception E. Right, and basically, we can then handle the error there. I'm going to handle the error by doing e.print stack trace. So a lot of things can go wrong. Here, I'm just going to run it, and it works just fine. But if I don't have that, if I put in a different file called foo.txt, which doesn't exist, it tries it, and then we get into the error block, which says that it prints out a file not found expression. Now, it may have looked like to you that I just had an error hit me and my program crashed. But watch what happens. It says my program did not crash. Run again. It says my program did not crash. It did all this stuff. Why? What happened is that it looked for a file. It couldn't do that, so it went into the catch block. The catch block said to print stack trace, which is what happens by default if you get an error, right? I could say instead over here system.out.println that file does not exist. Here's, let's do print line. Here's your error report, right? So that file does not exist. Here's your error report. And then notice that basically that's coming out of order. That's because that you've got we have two error streams here. We have the out stream, which gets printed out, and then we have the error stream. So if I switch this to which is the error stream, notice that it will come afterwards. It says my program didn't crash, right? So it completed. It did not crash, even though it looked like it was. In fact, I can show you that it doesn't crash. It makes even more sense if I comment that out and say out. That file does not exist. My program did not crash. Now this will catch anything that goes wrong. Yes.
How many cache segments can we create?
You can catch as many. You can catch as many as you want. You can have multiple catch statements, right? The first one is the one that you probably want it to be the most specific because it will check the catch statements in order. So here I was catching any exception that could happen. Here on this block, I'm going to specifically catch the file not found exception, E. So I'm going to move this up over to here, and then if some other exception happens, well, that was weird, right? So let me cause a different error. Int x is equal to 1 divided by 0. That file does not exist. Oh, we didn't get to 1 divided by 0 because the file still doesn't exist, right? So checked. Is that a file not found exception? Yes, it is. That's why it did that as opposed to this is weird. Now, if I change it to a file that I do have, actually, pg100.txt. Well, that was weird, right? It was able to load up the file, then we got to 1 divided by 0, and it printed out, well, that was weird. How do we know that we're in that block? Well, because we got a arithmetic exception divided by 0. All right, so, well, that's just opening a file. We're ready to read stuff, but now let's actually, like, read stuff using the file, which is pretty fun. So scanner, right, it's just loaded that up, and now it's ready to scan anything. You can do this with anything, including, like, URLs. Scanner is like the Swiss utility, you know, it's the Swiss knife of, so the Swiss Army knife of doing the, basically, reading stuff. So reading a file, well, we don't know how big it is, so it's an indeterminate loop, and it simply works like this. While scanner dot has next line, while there's still stuff for the scanner to read, string line is equal to scanner dot read line. Oh, sorry, Scott. It's not read line. It's next line, right? While it has something, so you see how this is a very coherent block over here. While we have a next line to read, I'm going to read it, and then I'll eventually get to the end of the file, and there won't be anything else to read. So then I'm done. So you'll get an infinite loop, by the way, if you get to read a bunch of text. So, and then we can do whatever we want with it, like print out the line of text. And that'll take a while. Oh, and there we go. And it printed out all of Shakespeare, right? And it says my program didn't crash. Okay, so that's try and catches. Typically, though, most people just, for you guys at your level, you'll put in a single exception block, right? So anything that can happen that goes wrong, you can catch it in some way. And also, you want to minimize the amount of stuff you put in the try catch block.